My man, Donnie, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me to share your story. It's been a year and a half since we connected, and I've been really looking forward to this experience again. And so I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, it's a privilege to be sharing my passion and sharing my story and inspiration and to reconnect with you. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So for everyone who's listening right now and does not know who you are, give us a brief little background on who you are and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so I'm a personal development coach, a yoga teacher, mindfulness meditation teacher. I have a coaching program, a life coaching personal development program called The Shift. It's transformation of the mind, body, soul. It's a 90-day program that I've been rolling with the last 2 years, I believe. So it's powerful stuff, man. I do some speaking. I do corporate wellness, corporate mindfulness, and some motivational speaking also on the side. And that's really what keeps me busy these days.
Yeah, very cool. And we met on kind of when you were leading the mindfulness yoga retreat at Lululemon's Purpose and Practice, and so that was a perfect space for us to kind of connect and learn more about each other. But I kind of want to dive into what we connected on, and that was kind of like our college athletic career, and then our transition kind of out of sports. And so, tell us a little bit about your college experience and kind of what happened.
Yeah. So, and if you can hear my little puppy Frenchie barking in the background, excuse me for that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So college, I played baseball. Division I college baseball. I went to University of Nebraska and then transferred to Arizona State. I played all the way until my 15th game my senior season, and I had what was my 5th surgery on my left knee. The surgery was a big one. It was a cadaver transplant of my meniscus. I was the first person in Arizona to ever have this surgery.
Wow.
And the surgery just was a nightmare. It turned into being bedridden for a month and a half. The day that I woke up from that surgery, like I knew I would never play baseball again. The doctor sold me on this particular procedure fairly well and said, if all goes well, you could play again. And there, from the massive signs of trauma to just the unbearable pain, like I knew baseball was over for me. And yeah, that day and for many years after, my world got turned upside down from a life of an addiction to prescription pills. And, being this baseball player and having this identity and everything wrapped up in that identity, and baseball being the love of my life, one day when it's stripped away, I didn't know who I was. I didn't want to feel the emotional pain and the loss of it. So I numbed it every day for many years by popping pills. I mean, I partied and did other drugs, but really what had its grip on me were the pills, and to the point where it one day landed me in rehab. And yeah, in rehab, I just got really interested on where did my life go wrong? Like, what the hell happened going from this baseball player to now a drug addict? Like, what happened? And as I dove in and did the work and did 12-step work and therapy and my own personal development, it was clear that I had lost my purpose. I was going through, there was physical pain and major trauma, and I was getting prescribed 80 Percocet a week for a month and then got cut off cold turkey from the doctor. So there was a lot of excuses as to why it happened. The doctor screwed me over. And really, when I got super honest and I dove in and did the work, it was that there was so much emotional pain and loss, and I just numbed it. I numbed out for years by just getting high and popping pills.
Yeah, man, it's such a crazy story because I mean, you've had surgeries before. You go into this 5th one, and then you know that like the surgery is going to be a little bit more risky, and then you come out of it knowing that you're not going to play anymore. You just have that feeling, and then you got to find a way to kind of cope with that feeling and find a way to kind of take this identity that I've always had and figure out who I am after that. And so I kind of had a similar experience when I left sports with NASCAR. It was like you could find me at the pub 5-6 days a week just because I didn't have anything else to do, and I didn't have a community of people around me. And so what did it look like for you, like when you got into the rehab and you were kind of doing, like, you were finding that self-awareness, finding that you lost your way, lost your passion, and how did it kind of start coming back and grow into what it is now?
It was a somewhat slow progression that looked like having at 1.3 years of sobriety and really building a foundation, but then getting complacent and stopping doing the work, stopped connected with my sober network, thought I could handle this, like I'm good on my own, and I ended up hurting my other knee, like minor meniscus tear on my right knee. Had to have surgery. The surgery was nothing compared to these other ones I've had. But I woke up from the surgery and I loved the way that I felt. And 6 days later, I was in the doctor's office lying about my pain level, and so I could get more pills. So it, like, that relapse, having 3 years, and then going back out, and I went back out for 6, 8 months, and the relapse really messed with me for a while because you build all this time up, and now I'm like a newcomer. I don't have any time underneath my belt. I've like failed. But today, with another 7.5 years of sobriety after that,
Wow.
that was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was humbling and a reminder that the work will never stop. And I can be free of the obsession and of my addiction, but it's contingent on my spiritual condition. And my spiritual condition today, I mean, it really looks like being of service, doing my meditation practice, moving my body, having my first hour of the day sacred, non-negotiable things that I do in the very first hour of my day, and nothing gets in the way of that. And staying connected and helping other people, what be it in my coaching program or being in sobriety or helping families that might have a loved one that are going through something. And yeah, I'm so blessed for recovery and what it's given me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And even all the terrible decisions I made in the past when I was in my addiction and the pain and worry I caused my family, I know without a doubt it all happened for me to get to where I'm at today. And I can let go of the guilt and the shame that I had for the pain and the person that I was and the pain I was putting everybody else through. I
Mm-hmm.
can let go of that as long as I live it every day. It's like a living amends. Like I could say, I'm like in the 12 steps, 8th and 9th step, you go through and you make your amends. Be willing to make the amends to anybody that you harmed. And I could sit there and say, Mom, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm sorry. But really what it is for me today, it's to make a living amends. And it looks like being the best son, the best brother, the best friend, the best teacher that I can be. And if I do that every single day, the guilt and shame has been long gone for a while. And I did some dumb stuff in my addiction, but I'm free of that so long as I stay in the work and I stay in a fit spiritual condition.
Gosh, yeah, that's awesome. Like just hearing that, knowing that you're going to continue on the lifestyle and continue just giving, and that's going to kind of overcome any of that negative kind of aspects of it. So by continuing to live that purpose, you can forget and forgive yourself for all those things that you did in the past. It's awesome. Awesome to hear, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most powerful tool that recovery has given me is the service to help others. The quickest way out of a funk, if you're in a funk or you're stuck in self-pity, go help somebody else, because then you're not thinking about yourself. And man, has that been like a game changer for me, especially right now. Like even when this whole COVID thing hit, and we go into quarantine, it's not my doing. But what happened for me is, because I feel like I'm hardwired this way now, is that it just sprung me into action. Like right before quarantine hit, I was kind of feeling flat. Like I needed to go on my own retreat to fill my own cup and wasn't feeling really inspired. And it hit and it just like fueled me into action.
Yes.
So I go and like just put out some free meditations and free yoga classes for people online. That's not me. Like at my core, as I did the work on myself, and they say the core of addiction for most is selfishness and self-centeredness. Like that's our main character defects. And that
Wow.
might even be true still today, but at least today I can be selfish in ways that actually help other people and don't tear everybody else down around me. And so it's really a more empowering way to do it. But that idea of service and carrying the message of service, my past, which used to bury me in guilt and shame, really has given me an access point to a greater purpose in life, and that blows my mind that my messy past can actually help other people today. It's really cool, and to many it might sound vulnerable sharing my past and sharing my story.
Hmm.
Yeah, for example, with Lululemon's purpose and practice, and starting off this whole event and sharing my story, which
Yeah.
feels very vulnerable for everybody else that I'm on stage sharing my past mess. That actually is that's actually comfortable for me. Standing on stage necessarily isn't, but talking about that is.
Hmm.
But what it does for everybody else, it activates permission and vulnerability for everybody else to open up and say, it's okay. You're not the only one that's struggled and gone through something like this. So it's really cool how it just kind of humanizes me and allows people to connect on an emotional level to know that, like, I've gone through plenty, and most of it was self-inflicted, but like, I think we all have our own stuff, and I'm just not afraid to share it today. And it's kind of what frees me from my past. I always like to think like once we own our story or we own our wound, we get to write the ending then once we own it. And I
Yep.
feel like that's kind of what's happening in my life, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I'll say that if it wasn't for you being vulnerable that first day at Purpose and Practice, I don't know if I would have opened up as much. Just because seeing an athletic build on a guy, hearing about the D1 sports and everything, I felt that immediate connection. And then it did really give me permission to kind of be vulnerable that whole couple days, because as an athlete and just as like a just the masculinity in me, vulnerability was never expressed to me as strength. It was always kind of just like if you are sharing your emotions, the sign of weaknesses, things like that. Like I really didn't work on my emotional wellness after stopping crying after losing wrestling matches. Like when I was a kid, it was like after I could stop crying and I could walk off the mat like a man, that's when I felt like I was emotionally correct. But I was just bottling everything down, and so it was nice kind of getting that reassurance from you to open up, allow me to be and live my story.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I mean, it took work to get there, and I for a couple of years when I was started to teach yoga. So if I backtrack, my mom's the one that got me into yoga. When I was at my rock bottom, body banged up, favoring my left leg for 15 years. My right side's all messed up, the knees messed up, and I'm always complaining about the pain I'm feeling. And my mom would always say, "You need to come to yoga." She was doing yoga. I always say like before yoga was cool, but she was doing it a while ago, and she would always tell me that you need to come with me. Let's go. And I would always say, yoga's for girls and hippies. I'm not doing that crap. Like that's where I was, so close-minded, so hard-headed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like dying spiritually and physically, but yet I'm not even willing to like try it. Finally, I go one day to some 24-hour fitness yoga class with her, and I did the class, and I knew I would do yoga the rest of my life from that one class, just from a physical standpoint. What it was
Wow.
doing, the reprieve I was feeling in my hips and my back, I just knew. Little did I know what it would do for the mind and the soul, and that came later. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I was just so into it. I'm like, I wanted to go to teacher training. I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Not necessarily I was going to like be this teacher, but I wanted to learn the lineage and learn the anatomy and learn these things. But once I got into teacher training, I'm like, oh I got to share this. This is amazing. And then I started teaching, and I was working a corporate job and just slowly phased out of that to the point where I was a full-time teacher, became a Lululemon ambassador. Lululemon did wonders for the progression of my career and gave me so many opportunities. And starting as a Lululemon ambassador and going to one of their first purpose and practice pilots, and Danielle Nagel, the director of mindfulness or mindful performance at Lululemon, which is their mindfulness division of the company. She's facilitating and leading this personal development retreat. And I just like, man, I want what she has. The way she held space and controlled the room, and just everything about her energy. I was like, that's what I want. And a year and a half later, I was leading it with her. It's just crazy. Like Lululemon's amazing like that, and they've taught me, to tap your own shoulder and not wait, just like make it happen. And it happened, and purpose and practice and leading that event is by far one of the most powerful, memorable experiences. The first one I ever did was in New York City. And so you're, doing this work and, cultivating the calm and this peace in the midst of like this storm, New York City, that's all around us. So, man, obviously those times have stopped for now, but it really brings a whole nother level of appreciation for what we were able to curate in that space over those 2.5 days.
Yeah, like even not even in New York, but we were in Miami and just like on those rooftops and seeing all the other buildings, and it was a very kind of peaceful place and just a cool experience. I mean, I had never experienced anything like that, and just like that was in the time, that was where I was kind of feeling out energy as a whole. I was just getting into my meditation practice and really just kind of learning more about like just my energy and feeling that collective that was there, and feeling that just how much that after like an hour-long meditation and then going right into journaling or like that sound bath that we did, it was pretty wild. It really opened me up like spiritually and emotionally too, just because it was just that kind of event, and I had never experienced anything like that. And I legit, I just finished the last page of my notebook, and so I'm actually, your notebook is on another one.
Wow.
But I finished the last page in here, and I've been recording all my podcasts in this, and so that was a perfect event. It was awesome meeting you there, and then Lululemon has just done wonders for me as well, just personal development wise, and so it's a cool experience. It really is.
Yeah, I think back when you saying that, Lululemon is really my access point to personal development. And well, actually my addiction is, because like 12 steps and all that was really, but actually seeing that there's opportunity here, and because Lulu is anchored in personal development and as part of their values, like that's really what exposed me more to it, and where I really started to fall in love with it, to the point where I eventually became a personal development coach.
Yeah. They definitely do a good job with that. And like, even like you said, they help you kind of create your goals. It was like at a vision and goals session at my work, I said that I was going to create a podcast to my 50 other employees. And then it was like, then now I have 50 people on my team that are asking me, Roman, when's the next podcast? Like, it became bigger than me. And now it's like, I got to be a man of my word and start producing this stuff so that I don't let everybody else down.
That's amazing. I mean, wow. Yeah, it's Lululemon's an amazing company. I mean, even just thinking back to those events and the quality of the hotels and the environments and the attention to detail, even seeing it on the back end, kind of behind the scenes as a facilitator, and like how intentional every part of that process was for the attendees that were experiencing it. It's quite mind-blowing. And for those that don't, understand that Lulu's so much more than just selling those stretchy pants, right? Like,
yeah,
the company is rock solid in their core values.
Yeah, you got that right. They've helped me kind of figure out what my core values are, and then now it's like, now Roman, let's try and help others figure out theirs and help them grow as well. So it's definitely a love-backed kind of environment that I truly am grateful to be a part of. And so how did you kind of transition from the yoga instructor into like the wellness coach into the motivational speaker? Like, what did it look like for you? And then how have you kind of grown as a person from from doing all these?
So what I was at one point teaching. So to backtrack, I was talking earlier about the progression from corporate America to yoga teaching.
Yeah.
My first graduated teacher training, I'm like, I'm going to quit my corporate job. I'm going to be a full-time yoga teacher. And I did. I quit my full-time job. My intention was to go teach all these classes. And I just got this rude awakening. Like, first of all, I wasn't able to get that many classes. Second of all, the yoga industry and the studios, it wasn't what I thought. I thought every yoga studio, everybody that was involved was going to be this peaceful, happy, integral person, and it just wasn't that way everywhere. And I wasn't able to get classes everywhere. I don't know if that was my ego or thinking I could just go do this. So I got humbled really quick, and I went back to corporate America, and I had like 2 classes. And then I got to like 6 classes, still working a full-time job, got up to like 12 classes, and then took a different job where I was working remote 4 days a week and going in the office 1 day a week. Nice. Got up to like 15 classes, and then I ended up leaving my corporate job and took a 20-hour contract job, and then eventually cut out the corporate America and went all in. So it was like, looking back, the timing was perfect. Looking back, my timing, what I thought was ideal, like, no, that wasn't going to work. But within the period of like 2.5 years, I was able to finally get there. So now I'm teaching 20 classes a week. And at some point I just said, I don't think I want to teach 20 classes a week 5 years from now. And so this is where coaching came in, and I had some friends that were coaches. I had a coach, and it was what really inspired me to make this, I wouldn't say transition, because I was still teaching. I'm still teaching yoga, but this was something that actually ended up being fairly seamless because I already had the following. And even going back to the yoga piece of it, like teaching yoga for the first couple of years, not everybody knew my story of addiction. Not everybody knew the whole deal. And I was in a leadership training, Off the Mat Into the World, that's led by Sean Corn. She's one of my greatest teachers and has become a really close friend of mine. She runs that organization, and I went to her 5-day leadership training. And in the leaders, she's got, Sean, if you're a yoga student or a practitioner and you know of her, then you know. And if you don't, look her up. Powerful, powerful words. I'm not talking about like famous Instagram yoga. I don't like to say the word real yoga, but just yoga for the soul. And really, she's the one I credit to really making yoga make sense for me as far as the mind-body connection, and also taking your yoga off the mat and sharing it with the world. So she says these words in the leadership training. She says the words, "How dare we not?" Those were words that I heard that were right to my heart. And for me, it was, how dare I not share my story? Share my story with people. Yeah. People are dying out there. I live in Phoenix and Scottsdale area, and there's a lot of people on the outside that look like they're happy and have a lot of things, but I knew firsthand they're dying on the inside. Whether it's mental health, addiction, or just overall unhappiness. Yeah. I knew that. And so we were tasked with going back into our communities and creating a service project. And mine became Sunday Yoga Service. So this was a monthly event we did at some of the resorts around here. And at the very first one, I shared my story. I shared my story of addiction. I shared the past. And how it came to this event that I had created. And from that day, like everything changed for me. Everything I was so worried about, people, what they were going to think of me, completely changed. I found my voice. I found my purpose. It humanized me. I was getting direct messages from people saying, your message, I lost my husband a month ago to alcoholism. I was in your class today, your event. Your words like really helped me heal. And I'm like, wow, like everything I was so worried about. And that like completely changed everything. I believe that if I'd never really publicly shared that, I would not be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't have got to do events like Purpose and Practice and work with Lululemon. But I was able to kind of walk through some of the fear and the worrying about what other people think about me stuff that would come up all the time. And it just completely changed my life. And so that kind of that vulnerability, if you will, or just really allowing people to see who I was, opened up so many other doors. And I feel like more people could relate to me.
Wow. That Sunday service must have been special. That first one.
It was scary. It was scary for me, but it was special. And the feeling after, and just watching like the DMs come in from people that were there. And then I just knew like this, this is going to be my thing. And the cool thing is, from a selfish standpoint, I am now accountable to a whole hell of a lot of people. And if I go back out and use, I kind of lose my identity. I kind of lose my business and my purpose if I'm not walking the walk. So it's kind of good strategy to put it out there and stack up these other layers of accountability that are going to keep me in a good place.
Oh, for sure. Now you got people following your story, and are looking to hear that inspiration and to kind of see you succeed. And so that's exciting stuff. And I loved hearing like your story, because it's like it's like how everybody says, like, work on your passion outside of your day job until your passion starts paying, like, till you can do your passion full time, and then you can kind of go into that full on lifestyle. And so it took you three years, it sounded like, from going from corporate into the yoga world completely. And it's cool kind of just seeing that progression, because sometimes I get caught up in my head as like, I should be in this place right now, I've put this much time in, and then it's like life, it's like at the end of the day, a year and a half of this podcast is so short that it's like I'm still thinking long term. Sometimes I just beat myself up a little bit.
Yeah, I think we all do. I heard the word should. I always say like we should all over ourselves, and it's a word. We should on other people and we should on ourselves, and it's really just a self-sabotage word that I myself catch myself saying all the time. But it's looking at, like, especially if we're in the business of impact and serving others, and knowing that we will be supported, we'll be taken care of by God or the universe. If this is what we're doing and we're helping, like, in the business of saving lives, whatever that looks like. And we just have to, like my shirt says, trust the process, which is hard to do sometimes, but, or trust God, if that's whatever your beliefs are, to be able to trust it, and that it's going to be on God or the universe's timing, not our timing.
Yep. They say write your plans in pencil, because God or the universe will write them in permanent marker.
Totally.
So, yep. And so if there's someone out there that's kind of listening to this and listening to your story, and they, whether they have an addiction or they need some mentorship or something, like, what would, how would someone kind of reach out to you, and how could you support them, like, through your coaching?
Yeah, it's picking up the 1,000-pound phone. And a lot of times, so at my rock bottom, I thought I was the only one going through this. Nobody understands me, poor me. That was the story I was telling myself. And I just wasn't willing to reach out. And I didn't think my parents understood. They don't understand what I'm going through. This doctor screwed me over, poor me. But the truth is, common humanity tells us that if you're a human being, you're going to suffer. You're going to go through tough times. We're all flawed works in progress. Part of the human experience is suffering. Even though my pain might look a little different than your pain, this is what connects us all. And unfortunately, like, even with the state of the world and everything that happened with COVID, the idea would be that this would connect us, like the common struggle would connect us. Mm-hmm. However, there is a lot of unfaced fear and a lot of projection and old wounds that you see come up. So then there's disconnection there. So going back to your question about where would they start? And I think it's like admitting, like step one, admitting you're powerless, admitting you have a problem, and having the humility to reach out to somebody else. You can't do this work alone. You can't do life alone. And I know for me, like, usually the bottom for an addict, rock bottom, or even maybe mental health, where someone is really ready to make that decision to end their lives.
Mhm.
It's this story of nobody understands I'm different, which is BS, right? But
Yeah.
like, and but if we believe we're unique or we're different, then that disconnect happens. But if you are listening to this and you are struggling, I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. I've been there, and millions of people have been there, and millions of people have gotten sober from being at the bottom. And so it's the willingness. Willingness is a word that just runs deep for me. I believe that willingness equals freedom. So like if I'm going through the motions and kind of just doing things half-ass, I will always ask, Donnie, how free do you want to be? And that just brings me back to my rock bottom for a moment, because I don't regret the past. I don't shut the door on it either. Like, I want to remember a piece of that because it inspires me to get off of my butt and become willing if I need to do something. So the willingness to take direction and being open-minded to taking suggestions. So if you're struggling out there, I mean, shoot, you can reach directly out to me.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of men and women that will do anything to help somebody because that's what somebody did for us. So going back to Sean's words of how dare I not help someone that's reaching out? And the cool thing is when let's just say a female reaches out to me, and I coach females, but from an addiction recovery standpoint, it's also important for a female to have a female
Hmm.
sponsor and a female support system. Well, all I do is I just connect, put a text chain together with a few of the females that I know that are sober, that are solid. Maybe they've gone through my program, and connect them to the person struggling. When I do that, the person I'm connecting them with, that's benefiting them because they get to be of service. And then the person that needs the help is getting benefited because there's support there. And, that's the beauty of recovery, where we understand each other. And sometimes, going and trying to get sober through a church or just therapy, it's hard for them it's hard for the person that needs help to really say, well, this person really understands. But when I share my story with an addict or an alcoholic, they're going to know that, like, dude, I understand. I've been there. I've done all that dumb stuff and worse. So, yeah. So I think it's just willingness and open-minded and just really getting honest. If you got a problem and you can't stop, you got to reach out. You can't do it alone. You got to humble yourself, stay open-minded, and just be willing to take some direction.
Yeah. I think the willingness is one thing, and then the community aspect for the support is a must. I mean, because rock bottom does feel like the loneliest place. It does feel like you are alone. It does feel like that there's no one else around, that you're experiencing it all completely yourself. But it's knowing that other people have been there, and that there are other people out there that have thrived afterwards, and that can really help you kind of get out of your own way and get into a better situation.
Exactly, man. The opposite of addiction is connection. And when we disconnect from ourselves, that's where it starts. So like I'm at my rock bottom, lying on a couch, like not even able to get off my couch because I'm so just beat down by my addiction and guilt and depression and anxiety. And I say that like nobody understands. I isolate, because isolation is a huge like byproduct of the addiction. And because I've disconnected with myself, because everything starts from the inside out, so then I disconnect from everybody else. But that's the genius of these 12-step programs. I believe the two like key components are community, connection, human connection, which obviously, right now that's very challenging, but technology is actually working for us in this
Yeah.
aspect, because we're able to come together. We're able to have online meetings and have online yoga classes and all these things. So connection or community, and then service. Right away, you just go see how you can help others. And somebody that has 10 days sober can actually help other people, because there's people in those meetings that don't have any days sober. So it gives others hope, which gives the person with 10 days sober a sense of meaning and
Mm.
purpose.
Yeah,
So that's the beauty of it.
man, that's awesome that that you guys kind of have that community and that are you guys are. I feel like whenever I've talked to someone in the kind of recovery community, they are always just so willing to help everybody else because they know that like if they didn't have a helping hand, they wouldn't be where they were. And so they're always willing to extend another hand to help someone else out.
Totally. And you know what's wild is all during this whole COVID thing, the people that have been in the work and recovery, I've found that actually have dealt and navigated through these tough times fairly easily because of the fact it's not about not drinking. There's a design for living that works. There's community and there's connection and there's all these other things. So I've just noticed over these last 6 months or so that the ones that are doing the work in the program they're good. And then we call them normies, like people that just can drink or smoke pot normally, but not like an addict. Like a lot of the normies out there are really struggling. So my point is, it's not the program gives us tools to deal with life on life's terms. We live the serenity prayer, which is accepting the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's about controlling what you can control. And where most people got jammed up during this whole COVID thing was trying to control the outcome or the uncertainty, living in the future, worrying about what's going to happen instead of controlling what you can control this day. So
Yeah,
some powerful tools that go way beyond just not drinking or doing drugs.
yeah. The controlling what you can't control was something that was beat into me into sports. It was just like, especially with wrestling, you have your diet, you have your food intake, nutrition, you have your workouts, it's like all of it is just like, if you don't, and then you're thinking about what the other guy's doing, it's like, you got to focus on yourself. You got to focus on what you're doing, what you can control. And so I definitely love that, that phrase in its own. I think it's one of my favorite ones that I typically use. Um, and so what kind of stuff are you doing now? I know you're teaching classes right now. You're doing online yoga. How can other people get to know you in this virtual age that we are in right now?
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest way to access is probably through social media, or Instagram, or my website, which is just my name, DonnyStarkins.com. But on my website, I have an online subscription. Within that subscription, I have two plans. It's a basic plan, which is like $37 a month. I do 2 live yoga and meditation classes a week, Tuesdays at 9 a.m., Sundays at 9 a.m. And then there's a library of just probably over 100 of hours of yoga and meditation pre-recorded stuff. So there's yoga, meditation, the all access plan. You also get one coaching call a month on top of that, in addition to just a bunch of podcasts and different resource library of inspiration. So that's an easy way to access me. If I do a lot of corporate mindfulness talks and wellness talks, especially right now with mindful leadership and navigating back into the workplace, re-entering. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it right now. Everything pretty much in this virtual world for the most part. I'm ready to probably lead a retreat, an in-person retreat in January. I go to Sedona, Arizona every January and lead a retreat called Love Yourself, and I feel like we can do it right and make it safe. And I think people are ready and probably craving that right now. So.
Yeah.
That'll be something, probably the first in-person thing I'll be doing after the new year.
Perfect. Yeah, that's cool. I'll definitely have to check out that subscription and see if I can make it to one of those yoga meditation classes on Sundays. That's my day off, and so I could definitely figure that out.
Perfect, man. Well, 9 a.m. It's right now. It's Pacific Standard Time. Arizona's weird, where it's like if you said Mountain Time, it's actually different. Our time never changes.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. So, anyways, it'll change to Mountain once the time changes in a month or whenever it is. Where I'm oblivious to it because the time never changes here.
Yeah.
But the time zone does. It's weird.
That is, yeah. I've been to Arizona a couple of times, and you're like, which time zone are we in? Gosh, I just had a good question. What was I going to? Oh, you mentioned your shirt, and I've seen a
Oh yeah.
couple of them. I've seen a couple of them that you've been posting on social media. Where can we find those, and what other ones do you got?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I didn't even mention that. I have an online shop on my website, and on that shop there's 4 shirts. This one, Trust the Process, Love Yourself, Highly Meditated is another one, and Find Your Center. And there's men's and women's. There's women's tanks. There's a water bottle, a really cool water bottle. It also says Highly Meditated. Those are all on the website, and part of the proceeds go towards, I have a nonprofit called the Aftermath Community. The Aftermath Community is designed to support the friends and families that get left behind when one of their loved ones dies from the disease of addiction or mental illness. And so your contributions or your purchases always going towards a good cause. That really is what breaks my heart. I mean, I say being in recovery, but I think just being a human, I think at some point we've all been impacted by this and lost a friend or a family member or knew someone close to us that did. And that really is what just breaks my heart. I think about what it would have been like for my mom to have to wake up every single day knowing she lost her baby boy. Like, that is the type of stuff that really just, and I know I have close friends who I've lost, and close friends who have lost their brothers. And so it's the aftermath. Like, yeah, it breaks my heart to lose a friend, but the pain is the wreckage that they leave behind, and that pain of having to know they lost their family members. So any way that we can support them through, if it's funeral cost, if it's ongoing therapy, grief counseling, anything we can do to support the people that are going through that. That's what the Aftermath was created for.
Wow, that is definitely a community that I would like to support. I'm definitely going to be looking on that website and getting one of those shirts because I know people that have lost individuals, families that have lost individuals, and yeah, that aftermath really kind of hits home a little bit when you really started to mention it. And so
yeah, it's heavy, man. It's heavy, but it's, it breaks my heart, and it happens. And once I hear about another overdose or another suicide, it does break my heart, but then it just kind of fuels me into action to know that we got work to do. And COVID did not help. Meetings, AA meetings, NA meetings all went away for a while. Yeah. So I also have a sober meeting actually at 6 p.m. again, Arizona time every Tuesday night. So that's free to anybody. You could be sober curious. You don't have to be qualified. You could just need some support. Everybody's welcome. We keep it pretty chill. So that's another way to connect and to feel supported through that 6 p.m. meeting on Tuesdays. That's all through Zoom. And it's
Perfect.
On my website too.
Yeah, I'll get all this information from you again and put it all in the show notes too. So if anyone does have any questions, they can just they can reference it there. And so, yeah, perfect. Well, I think that's all I got for you today. It's been a pleasure having you on. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience today, or anything you got coming up exciting in the future?
No, man, I just want to acknowledge you for everything that you're doing. I appreciate you reaching out and asking me. It's a gift, and it's a privilege to carry this message and to have the space. So thank you for holding the space. I know that you are making a huge impact with your podcast. So I just want to acknowledge you back and thank any of the listeners for tuning in. And yeah, please, if you or you know anybody that's struggling, and maybe you don't have a substance abuse problem, but you're stuck or wanting to level up your life. I mean, my coaching program is for everybody. I work with pro athletes. I have a decent kind of clientele list when it comes to that. But I also work with, I've got clients that are 75-year-old female to a 15-year-old young adult. So it's all the same work. It's all personal development, whether you're sober or not sober. I believe there's powerful tools, techniques, and practices that we can provide in a whole another layer of accountability that helps people just create new rituals to level up their life and chip away at all the things that get in the way of them really showing up as the best version of themselves every single day.
Yeah, That's wonderful. I hope people do take advantage of your coaching. I know that you actually have one of my favorite athletes as one of your mentees in Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Man, I watched him single-handedly beat West Virginia one year when I was in school. I mean, it
No
was
way.
like he had like a pick six for a touchdown, and then like we got within like 14, and we thought it was a game. We kicked it off to him, and he took it back to the house, and it was just I have actually have goosebumps talking about it. I was like, dang, this guy Honey Badger is just crushing it.
Yeah, he's a special, special person in my life. Was a client back from working with the when he played with the Cardinals, and now he's still my client, but one of my closest friends, and just a living example of humility and really changing the conversation in the NFL when it talks about talking about emotions and talking about your past. He was just featured and mentioned me in it's the NFL preview in Sports Illustrated, which I think is on my website. But what he's talking about, I highly recommend reading it, because to see a guy's guy, this masculine guy playing at the highest level, but talking about loving himself and talking about emotions, man, that is just like, to me, that's what it's all about. So we can start to change the conversation, and we don't have to fight through the pain and never let him see you sweat. That we can actually like talk about what we're struggling with, because we've all got struggles, man, and like to try to front and try to act like we don't, that's the way I was raised too.
Yeah.
But we're changing the conversation, and leaders like him have really activated that through just talking about it and putting it out there in the press. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, I like watching it. I mean, I see him with the brain scan thing on
Yeah, the brain
too, and
cap.
yep, I started looking into them after I saw them on your page and his after he was using them. And yeah, he's been an athlete that I followed all this time, and it's nice to kind of like you mentioned, seeing him be vulnerable as well, because I still have my ego from my college ego that's like, come on, suck it up. And then I got the other side of me that's like, all right, let's give myself grace and like know that it's not coming quick. And then it's like, put your foot back on the gas.
Yeah, well, it's good balance, man. And speaking of podcasts, so I'm also launching a podcast, and
Yeah.
it'll probably be another month from now. But another NFL football player, Darren Waller, he's a tight end for the Raiders, who is public about his own sobriety. He was on Hard Knocks last year, and they had asked him if he, the management had asked him like, hey, they're gonna probably ask you about your recovery. Do you want them? Do you want to share your story? And he said, yeah. And he said, even like, his stage is way bigger than mine, but how that completely changed his life and the messages he was getting. So we're partnering up. He's also a coaching client, but also a friend. And we're partnering up to do a podcast called Comeback Stories. Because everybody loves a comeback story, right?
Oh, you got to love a comeback story.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I will definitely write that down, and I'll definitely be tuning in as well. Always looking forward to kind of hearing comeback stories. Those are my favorite part. Like, I can't wait to tell the story about me when I recorded my first podcast in the locker room of a gym, and you could hear the shower water tink, 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 and I had to put like towels under, and it was on a Rogue box with a mic in the middle, and so I love hearing just comeback stories.
Yeah, and I think everybody has one. Like not only does everybody love one, but everybody has one. And whether you don't think you do, we've all gotten back up, and I think we all can relate to that. So I'm excited. I'm excited to create and jump into the platform that you're in podcasting, and to partner up with a humbled, solid guy like Darren who's shared his story should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, let me know if you need any support or have any questions about it. I'd be happy to give any expertise that I have in the field.
I'll be hitting you up for sure, man. And yeah, thanks for these extra couple of minutes, because I realized I kind of forgot to talk about some other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, no worries. I just remembered them too, and so I'm happy to have you. And then I'm looking forward to continuing this friendship. And shoot, I'm always down to record again whenever we got some big events coming up or anything that that feels shareable.
Cool, man. I'm always here. I'll always be a yes if you need anything on my end.
Wonderful, Donnie. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the work and all the service you're putting out in this world. It's definitely very inspiring, and I hope the people are listening. And yeah, just thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem.